Okay, so here we go, guys. Amp test for a customer 8-pill 454. There you go, HG 454. Really like these. Done a few videos on these guys. We got a couple of these out here floating around. I was actually going to put this one in my truck. A customer hit me up and reminded me that he had been waiting on one. And asked me if I had one. I said, well, yeah, I've got one here. And he decided he wanted it, so we're going to test it and see how it does. I think he'll be real happy with it. Like I said, I was going to run this one in my pickup and was actually going to run this exact setup. I was going to put a Texas Star modulator into it and let it rip. But we'll test it here. He did request that I test it with 110 watts PEP, so I'll end up backing the V mod down to about 110 PEP. It swings about 130 right now, 135 give or take, something like that. And that's about what you want to put into one of these comfortably, 135 PEP. Now I do have a guy that I sold a 4-pill to, and I think he's hitting it with almost 100 watts. And you know, from what I've been told, it's doing really good for him, so he hasn't had any trouble out of it. I think he's hitting it with somewhere between 80 and 100 watts. But this guy right here, I recommend about 130 PEP. Of course, if you're running less into it, that's fine. You know, just stay around that number. Anyway, let's get into it here. Like I said, our V mod's wide open. It does about 130 watts peak, and we got a 1,000 watt slug. I've got a 2,500 watt slug in there in the other room, but it's in the back of an amp, and the amp is back in a corner, kind of a pain to get to. So we'll just go with the 1,000 watt slug. We'll test it on average, test it on peak, give us a good idea what this thing's doing. We'll go from there. So anyway, let's test our current draw first. We're at 14.5 volts here. It's a 100 watt day key. Audio 72.5 amps. That's wide open. That's with this running and the V mod running off of the power supply. Let's test it on average power here. Audio test. Audio on. Audio. Hello audio. Hello. Just right below 500 watts average. We can call that, what, about 480. Of course, it's going to change average power with the tone of your voice. You know, you might do a high pitch and it does 400, a low pitch and it does 500. We'll say about 480 watts. And this is PEP, peak. 1,000 watt slug, PEP, PEP, PEP. What can PEP do for me? That's burying this 1,000 watt slug. Audio. That's deep in the corner. When it buries it that deep, you can probably bet that it's at least a couple hundred watts more. And just quick math, what I say we're doing, about 480 average. Let's just call it 500, and then we'll knock a little bit off. So 500, if we say peak power is 2.5 times 500, that would be 1250. You could say 2.6 times, 2.8 times. So we'll just estimate and say this thing's doing about 1,200 PEP with about 130 going in. And that's about right. That's a little bit less than 10 times, but that's pretty close. It could be doing more peak. It's not always an exact number. Average power and peak power, it can be different with different amps. And it also depends on what kind of radio you're using too. So hook the Connex up, you know, it'd probably do 600 watts average. Hook the unit in up, it's doing, you know, a little bit less than 5. But now what we're going to do, I'm going to leave the peak kit on. I'm going to leave it on, and I'm going to turn this down, and I'm going to dial this V mod back till it swings 110 watts. Hello, that's 100. Hello, audio, 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 audio. That's about 110. So we've got the V mod turned back to 110 watts. Turn the 8-pill 454 back on. And first thing I want to do is check the current draw. See how much less we're drawing. Test, test, audio, test, test, audio, test, test, audio. 60, 58. So we're going to expect a little bit less on the watt meter because obviously we're drawing less current. Drawing, what, 12, 15 amps less? 1,000 watt slug, we're in PEP. PEP, what can you do for me with a little PEP? Still over 1,000. Audio, still talking. Now, you'll see we're talking now. It's a little bit less, talking right at 1,000 even. But on the audio, still buries it, just not as hard. I'm gonna guess 300 watts and some change average, just as a prediction here. I think the average power is gonna fall off because we dialed our VMod back. Okay, average power, audio, almost 400, about 380. So it's acting more like a 4-pill there, kind of. Test, 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 audio, audio. Hello. Doing good, 380, 360, whatever you want to call it. And that's with it dialed back. So close to 500 watts with it wide open. Dial it back some, about 380. Doesn't draw as much current. Like I said, different radios will make it act different. I could hook my Connex up, make it show a lot more average power, probably show about the same peak. Burying a 1,000 watt slug, so doing what it's supposed to do. I think some people have said they've seen up to 1,400, 1,500 watts out of these. And I believe the last one that I had, gosh, what did it do? I'd have to look back at the old video. I think it did about 1,250, 1,300, something like that. For kicks, we can just hit it with this radio and see how it acts. I mean, this radio is only doing 10 to 11 watts average and 35, 45 peak. It's probably going to make the average and peak show kind of wonky, but what the heck, we might as well do it while we've got it hooked up. Average power, hello, 200 watts. That's with just a barefoot radio now. Just a 35 watt, 40 watt radio, 10 to 11 watts average. Now this is peak. Audio, 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 audio. Still shows 700 watts. But because we're under driving it like that, you're getting kind of a wonky average power to peak power ratio going on. You know, obviously it's doing a lot more PEP than what it is average there. It's doing 700 watts peak and 200 watts average, but I like this box, man. The guy that's getting this, I mean, I hope he's happy with it. I think he will be. I don't get a lot of these in, but they're a little bit few and far between right now. But I think it'll make him a good one. One of my favorite amps to come through here. I like these and I like the 4-pills a lot, just because they get up and go with just a little bit of drive. And they run good, run real good. That's it, man. 8-pill 454. Hello, 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 audio. Hope you enjoy. Questions, comments, complaints, shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. Rooster in Tennessee. See you, bye.